Hey there, story lovers. I'm so excited to share a super fun tale with you today. Before we dive in, I've got a quick question. Have you ever had a nosy neighbor who acted like they were the boss of everything? Maybe they peeked over your fence or told you what you could do in your own yard. Drop a comment below and tell me about it. Oh, and let me know where you're watching from today, maybe from your bedroom, your living room, or even your grandma's house. If you love stories that grab you and don't let go, hit that subscribe button right now so you won't miss any of our awesome adventures. Okay, let's jump into this story. Close your eyes for a second and imagine a place called Sunny Hills. It's a quiet little neighborhood where everything looks happy and bright. Kids zoom around on their bikes, laughing as they race each other down the street. Dogs bark and chase after squirrels that scamper up trees. The houses are neat, with green lawns and colorful flowers in the gardens. It's the kind of place where you'd think nothing ever goes wrong, like a picture in a storybook. In this cozy corner of the world lived a young woman named Mia Carter. Mia was new to Sunny Hills and she loved her little house. It had a big front porch where she could sit and sip lemonade and a backyard perfect for relaxing. Mia was super friendly. She'd wave at everyone she saw, kids on their scooters, old folks walking their dogs, even the mailman dropping off letters. Her smile was so warm it made people feel good, like they'd known her forever. But here's the thing, Mia liked to keep to herself. She didn't go to every barbecue or chat for hours with the neighbors. She was happy just doing her own thing, and that was okay with most people. Well, almost everyone. See, there was one person in Sunny Hills who didn't like Mia at all. Her name was Karen Wheeler, and she wasn't just any neighbor. She was the head of the Sunny Hills Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. Now, if you don't know what an HOA is, it's like a club that makes rules for the neighborhood. They decide things like how tall your grass can be or what color you can paint your house. It's supposed to keep everything looking nice, but Karen, she took it way too far. Karen wasn't just nosy. She was like a detective who thought everyone was breaking the rules. If your grass grew a tiny bit too long, Karen would march right up to your door with a grumpy face and a big book full of HOA rules. If your mailbox was a shade of blue she didn't like, she'd leave a mean note taped to it. One time she told a kid he couldn't ride his skateboard because it was too loud. Can you believe that? Most people in Sunny Hills just rolled their eyes when Karen started complaining. They'd sigh, fix whatever she was mad about, and move on. Nobody wanted to argue with her because Karen never backed down. But Mia, she was different. Mia wasn't the kind of person who'd just do what Karen said. She had a spark in her, a quiet kind of strength that made her stand out. Karen didn't know it yet, but she was about to pick a fight with the wrong neighbor. Let's go back to Mia for a minute. When she moved into Sunny Hills, she was so excited. She'd saved up for years to buy her house, and it felt like a dream come true. She spent her days fixing it up, painting the walls a soft yellow, hanging curtains with little flowers on them, and planting roses by the front steps. Her favorite spot was the backyard, where she'd sit under a big tree and read books or listen to music. Mia loved gadgets, too. She had all kinds of cool techie stuff, like a phone that could turn on her lights or a little robot that vacuumed her floors. It was like she lived in the future. The neighbors noticed Mia's friendly waves and her neat house, but they didn't know much about her. Some folks whispered about her, wondering why she was so quiet. "Who is she?" they'd say. "Where did she come from?" But Mia didn't mind the whispers. She wasn't hiding anything, she just liked her privacy. She'd smile and say, "I'm just Mia," if anyone asked, and that was enough for most people. Except for Karen. From the moment Mia moved in, Karen had her eyes on her. It started small. Karen would walk by Mia's house super slow, staring at her lawn like she was looking for something to complain about. One day she stopped and frowned at Mia's mailbox. "That's not the right size," Karen muttered, even though it was exactly like everyone else. Another time, she told Mia her roses were too red and might distract drivers. Mia just nodded politely, but inside, she thought it was silly. Who gets mad about flowers? Karen's complaints got worse every day. She'd send Mia long letters typed on fancy paper saying things like, "Your garbage cans were out for an extra hour on pickup day," or "Your porch light is too bright." Mia read the letters and tucked them away in a drawer. She didn't argue or get mad. She'd just smile and keep doing what she loved, fixing up her house, playing with her gadgets, and enjoying her new life. But deep down, Mia knew Karen wasn't going to stop. Karen wasn't just being picky, she didn't like Mia. Maybe it was because Mia was new or because she didn't bow down to Karen's rules like everyone else. Whatever it was, Karen acted like Mia didn't belong in Sunny Hills. She'd glare at Mia from across the street, her arms crossed and her lips tight, like she was planning something big. One sunny afternoon, Mia was sitting on her porch, sipping iced tea and reading a book about robots. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and a soft breeze made the leaves dance. It was one of those perfect days where everything feels right. Mia looked up and saw Karen marching toward her house, her face red and her hands clutching a stack of papers. Mia set her book down and waited. She knew this wasn't going to be a friendly visit. "Young lady," Karen called out, stopping at the edge of Mia's lawn. "We need to talk about that thing in your backyard." Mia tilted her head. "What thing, Karen's?" Karen pointed like she was accusing Mia of a crime. "That big, ugly shade thing. It's against the rules and it's making the whole neighborhood look bad." Mia's backyard had a cool new gadget she'd just put up, a smart shade. It was like a giant umbrella that could open and close with a tap on her phone. It gave her shade when the sun was too hot and it looked sleek and modern. The other neighbors thought it was awesome. Kids would stop by and say, "Wow, that's so cool," but Karen, she hated it. Mia stayed calm. "Karen, it's just a canopy. It's not permanent and it's allowed. I checked the HOA rules." Karen's eyes got narrow. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I'm in charge here and I say it's got to go." Mia didn't flinch. She just looked at Karen and said, "I'm not breaking any rules. If you have a problem, we can talk about it nicely." Karen huffed, her face getting even redder. "You'll be sorry you moved here," she snapped, then spun around and stomped away, her papers flapping in her hands. Mia watched her go, a tiny smile on her face. She wasn't scared of Karen, not one bit. See, Mia had a secret, something nobody in Sunny Hills knew about her. It wasn't a bad secret, but it was big. And Karen, with all her complaining and bossing, had no idea who she was dealing with. As the sun set that evening, Mia sat on her porch again, looking out at the quiet street. Lights flickered on in the houses around her and crickets started to chirp. She took a deep breath and thought about Karen's angry words. Most people would have been upset or worried, but Mia wasn't. She dealt with people like Karen before, people who thought they could push others around just because they had a little power. Mia leaned back in her chair, her eyes sparkling like she knew something nobody else did. Sunny Hills might have looked like a sleepy little place, but things were about to get interesting. Karen thought she was the queen of the neighborhood, but Mia, she was ready to show everyone that queens don't always win. The next day, things started to heat up. Karen wasn't done with her complaints, not by a long shot. She had a plan to make Mia's life miserable, and she wasn't going to stop until she got her way. But Mia wasn't just sitting around waiting for trouble. She was watching, listening, and getting ready for whatever came next. What was Mia's secret? Why wasn't she scared of Karen? And what was going to happen when these two locked horn? One thing was for sure. Sunny Hills was about to see a showdown nobody would forget. Trouble started brewing in Sunny Hills, and it all began in Mia Carter's backyard. Mia was a big fan of cool gadgets. She loved anything that made life easier or more fun, like her little robot vacuum that zoomed around her house or her phone that could turn on lights with just a tap. But her favorite new toy was a super neat smart shade she'd put up in her backyard. It was like a giant umbrella, but way fancier. It was big and shiny, and it could open and close all by itself when Mia pressed a button on her phone. On hot, sunny days, it gave her a shady spot to sit with a book or sip cold lemonade. She'd relax under it, smiling as the breeze rustled the leaves above her. It was perfect. The neighbors thought Mia's smart shade was awesome. Kids would ride by on their bikes and point, saying, "Wow, that's so cool." Even old Mr. Thompson, who lived next door, gave her a thumbs up one day and said, "That's a clever thing you've got there." Mia would grin and thank them. She liked making people smile with her gadgets, but there was one person who didn't smile at all. That person was Karen Wheeler, the head of the Sunny Hills Homeowners Association, or HOA, as everyone called it. Karen didn't just dislike the shade, she hated it. One bright morning, Mia was watering her flowers when Karen came marching across the street. Her shoes clicked loudly on the pavement, and her face looked like she'd just bitten a lemon. She held a big stack of papers in her hands, HOA rules, of course. Karen loved those rules more than anything. She waved the papers in the air like they were a magic wand that could make everyone do what she wanted. "Mia," Karen shouted, stopping right in front of Mia's porch. "That thing in your backyard has got to go." Mia put down her watering can and wiped her hands on her jeans. "What thing, Karen?" she asked, even though she knew exactly what Karen meant. "That ugly shade," Karen snapped, pointing at the backyard. "It's an eyesore. It makes the whole neighborhood look bad. The rules say you can't have unapproved stuff like that. Take it down right now or you'll be sorry." Mia didn't get mad or yell back. She just stood there, calm as could be, with a little smile on her face. "Karen," she said, "I checked the HOA rules before I put it up. My shade's okay. It's not a permanent thing and it's in my own yard. I'm not breaking any rules." Karen's face turned as red as a tomato. Her eyes got all narrow, and she gripped her papers so tight they crinkled. "Oh, we'll see about that," she huffed. "You think you can just move in here and do whatever you want? I'm in charge of this neighborhood, and I say that shade is coming down." She spun around and stomped away, her shoes making angry clicks all the way back to her house. Mia watched her go, shaking her head. She wasn't scared of Karen, not one bit. But as she walked back inside, she could feel a little knot in her stomach. Karen wasn't the kind of person who gave up easily. If she didn't like something, she'd keep poking and complaining until she got her way. Mia knew this was just the start of something bigger. The next day, things got even worse. Mia was in her kitchen making a sandwich when she heard a loud knock at her door. She opened it, and there was Karen again, holding another stack of papers. This time, she had a big, smug grin on her face like she'd just won a prize. "I'm giving you an official warning," Karen said, shoving a letter into Mia's hands. "That shade violates HOA Rule number 47, Section B. You have 1 week to take it down or you'll get a fine." Mia glanced at the letter. It was full of fancy words and numbers, but she could tell it was mostly nonsense. She looked up at Karen and said, "Karen, I already told you my shade's allowed. I'm not taking it down." Karen's grin disappeared. "You're making a big mistake, young lady," she said, wagging her finger. You don't know who you're dealing with." Then she turned and marched off again, muttering to herself about new people and no respect. Mia closed the door and sat down at her table. She read the letter, but it didn't worry her. She knew Karen was just trying to scare her. Still, she couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Why was Karen so mean? Why couldn't she just leave Mia alone? All Mia wanted was to enjoy her house and her cool shade. Was that too much to ask? Over the next few days, Karen kept up her attack. She started walking by Mia's house every single day, staring at the backyard like she was trying to burn a hole through the smart shade with her eyes. Sometimes she'd take pictures with her phone, holding it up and snapping away like a detective in a movie. Mia saw her from her window and just shook her head. It was kind of funny, but it was also getting old. Then Karen got louder. She went around the neighborhood, knocking on doors and talking to everyone about Mia's shade. "It's ruining Sunny Hills," she told Mrs. Lopez, who just nodded politely and closed her door. "It's against the rules," she said to Mr. Thompson, who shrugged and said he liked it. Karen even called a special HOA meeting at her house. She stood in her living room, waving her rule book and telling everyone that Mia was a troublemaker who didn't care about the neighborhood. Most people didn't agree with Karen. They liked Mia. She was nice and her shade wasn't hurting anybody. But nobody wanted to argue with Karen either. She was loud and pushy, and it was easier to just stay quiet. So they listened to her complain and went home, hoping she'd forget about it. But Mia wasn't worried. She dealt with people like Karen before, people who thought they could boss everyone around. She stayed calm, but she was watching. Every time Karen came by, Mia noticed little things, like how Karen's voice got extra sharp when she was mad, or how she'd leave her car parked in the middle of the street, blocking everyone else. Mia didn't say anything, but she was keeping track. It was like she was waiting for just the right moment. One evening, Mia sat under her smart shade, sipping iced tea and looking up at the stars. The shade was open, casting a soft shadow over her lawn. It was quiet, except for the chirping of crickets and the hum of a neighbor's lawnmower. Mia leaned back in her chair, thinking about Karen. She wasn't mad, not really. She just wished Karen would stop being so mean. But Mia had a feeling things were going to get worse before they got better. And she was right. Karen wasn't done, not by a long shot. She was cooking up a plan to make Mia's life miserable, and she thought she was so clever. But Mia wasn't just some new neighbor who'd give in. She had a trick up her sleeve, and Karen was about to find out what happens when you pick a fight with the wrong person. The days went by in Sunny Hills, and Karen Wheeler got louder and meaner. She wasn't just annoyed about Mia's smart shade anymore. She was on a mission to make Mia miserable. Every morning, Mia would check her mailbox and find a new letter from Karen. The letters were written on fancy paper, but the words were nasty. "Your shade is ruining the neighborhood's charm," one said. "Take it down or you'll regret it," said another. Karen even wrote that the shade was an ugly monster that made her house look bad. Mia read each letter, shook her head, and tucked them away in a drawer. She didn't get mad, but she could tell Karen was trying to scare her. Karen didn't stop with letters. She decided to make a big fuss. One evening, she called an HOA meeting at her house. She stood in her living room, holding her rule book like it was a prize, and talked to all the neighbors who showed up. "Mia Carter is breaking every rule," she said, her voice loud and sharp. "That shade in her yard is against the rule. She doesn't care about our beautiful neighborhood." She waved her arms and pointed at a picture of Mia's shade she'd taped to the wall. It looked like a crime scene photo from a TV show. Most of the neighbors didn't agree with Karen. They liked Mia. She was nice and always waved hello. Her shade didn't bother them. It was just a cool gadget that gave her a shady spot to relax. Mr. Thompson, who lived next door to Mia, leaned back in his chair and said, "I think it's neat." Mrs. Lopez nodded and added, "It's not hurting anybody." But Karen didn't want to hear that. She stomped her foot and said, "You're all wrong. I'm in charge, and I say it's got to go." The neighbors sighed and went home. They didn't want to argue with Karen. She was too loud and stubborn. But Karen wasn't done. She started acting like a detective. Every day she'd walk by Mia's house super slow, staring at the backyard. Sometimes she'd pull out her phone and take pictures of the smart shade, holding it up like she was gathering proof for a big case. One time Mia saw her hiding behind a bush, snapping photos like a spy. Mia peeked out her window and almost laughed. It was silly, but it was also annoying. Why couldn't Karen just leave her alone? Mia didn't yell or fight back, but she wasn't just sitting around doing nothing. She was smart. She'd watch Karen from her window, noticing little things that didn't seem right. For example, Karen's car was always parked in a weird way. She'd leave it right in the middle of the street, blocking other people's driveways. Neighbors would have to squeeze by, grumbling under their breath. Mia saw it happen again and again, but she didn't say anything. She just kept it in her mind. Another thing Mia noticed was how Karen treated people. She wasn't just mean to Mia, she was mean to everyone. One day, a delivery driver dropped off a package at Mrs. Lopez's house and Karen came storming out. "You parked too close to my lawn," she shouted, even though the driver was just doing his job. The poor guy looked confused and drove away fast. Mia saw the whole thing from her porch and shook her head. Karen was picking fights with everyone, and it was starting to make people mad. Mia kept quiet, but she was paying attention to every little detail. Every time Karen sent a mean letter or glared at her, Mia would notice. Every time Karen snapped at someone else, Mia would remember. It was like Karen was digging a big hole for herself, and Mia was just waiting for her to fall in. Mia didn't need to yell or argue. She knew being patient was the best plan. One afternoon, things got even crazier. Mia was in her backyard, watering her flowers, when she heard a loud rustling noise. She looked up and saw Karen standing right in her yard, holding a measuring tape. Karen was stretching the tape across the grass, measuring Mia's smart shade like she was a scientist. Her face was all scrunched up, and she was muttering to herself. "What are you doing, Karen?" Mia asked, walking over. Karen didn't even look embarrassed. She stood up straight and shouted, "This shade is too big. It's breaking the rules, and I'm reporting you to the city." Mia crossed her arms. Her voice was calm but firm. "Karen, you're in my yard. This is my property. You need to leave." Karen laughed, tossing her hair like she was in a movie. "Oh, you think you're so smart, don't you? Just wait, Mia. I've got friends in high places. They'll make you take this thing down." She rolled up her measuring tape with a loud snap and marched away, but not before turning back to say, "I'm going to teach you a lesson." Mia watched her go, standing still in her yard. The flowers swayed in the breeze, and the smart shade hummed softly as it adjusted itself. Mia wasn't scared, not even a little. Karen's big talk and mean words didn't bother her. She'd heard it all before, but as she went back to watering her flowers, she knew Karen was planning something big. People like Karen didn't stop until they thought they'd won. That night, Mia sat on her front porch looking up at the starry sky. The air was cool and the neighborhood was quiet except for the soft chirp of crickets. Mia leaned back in her rocking chair, her hands wrapped around a mug of hot cocoa. She thought about Karen, her angry letters, her sneaky photos, her loud complaints. Most people would be worried or upset, but Mia wasn't. She took a sip of cocoa and smiled to herself. Why wasn't Mia scared? Because she had a secret. It wasn't a bad secret, like hiding a monster in her basement. It was a good secret, something that made her different from everyone else in Sunny Hills. Karen thought she was just a new neighbor who didn't know the rules, but Karen was wrong. Mia was ready for whatever came next, and Karen was about to find out just how wrong she was. As Mia sat there, staring at the stars, she felt calm and strong. She didn't need to shout or make a fuss like Karen did. She was like a quiet river, steady and deep, with more power than anyone could see. Karen was out there making plans and thinking she was so clever, but Mia was watching, waiting, and keeping track of every little thing. The neighbors might not know it yet, but something big was coming. And when it did, Sunny Hills would never be the same. The next morning, Sunny Hills wasn't so sunny anymore. It was total chaos. Karen Wheeler had done something wild. She called 911, yelling that Mia's smart shade was a huge problem. She told the police it was a danger to the whole neighborhood. She even said it was blocking sunlight and making people feel sad. Can you believe that? She actually said the shade was causing emotional distress. By lunchtime, a police car rolled into the cul-de-sac with its red and blue lights flashing. Neighbors peeked out their windows, whispering to each other. Kids stopped riding their bikes to stare. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. Karen stood on her front lawn, arms crossed tight, looking super proud of herself. Her grin was so big you'd think she'd just won a prize. She was sure she'd finally gotten Mia in trouble. She kept glancing at Mia's house, waiting for the police to make a big scene. But Mia, she wasn't worried at all. She stepped outside her front door, cool as a cucumber, like nothing big was happening. Her face was calm, and she even had a tiny smile, like she knew something nobody else did. A police officer walked up to Mia. His name was Officer Daniels, and he seemed nice but serious. He tipped his hat and said, "Hello, ma'am. We got a call about some kind of structure in your yard. Can I take a look at it?" Mia nodded politely. "Sure thing," she said, pointing to her backyard. "It's just a canopy. It's really cool. It folds up in seconds if I want it to." Officer Daniels started walking toward the backyard, and Mia went with him. Karen couldn't stay quiet. She rushed over, waving her phone in the air like it was a flag. "It's illegal," she shouted. "I told her 1,000,000 times to take it down, but she's so stubborn, you need to make her stop." The officer didn't even look at Karen. He just kept walking with Mia. When they got to the backyard, he looked at the smart shade. It was big and shiny, standing tall over Mia's lawn. He tilted his head, checked it from a few angles, and then nodded. "Looks fine to me," he said, turning to Mia. "It's on your property, and it's not a permanent thing. I don't see any laws being broken here." Karen's mouth fell open so wide you could have fit a baseball in it. "What?" she yelled, her face turning red. "You're supposed to arrest her. That shade is ruining everything." The neighbors, who were now gathered on the sidewalk, started whispering louder. Some shook their heads, thinking Karen was being silly. Mia didn't say a word at first. She just stood there, her hands in her pockets, looking at Karen with that same tiny smile. It was a smile that made Karen stop yelling for a second. She looked confused, like something wasn't right. Then Mia spoke, and her voice was super calm. "Officer Daniels," she said, "since you're here, can I show you something? I've got a video from my backyard camera. It's pretty interesting." Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow. "A video? Sure, let's take a look." Mia pulled out her tablet from inside her house and tapped the screen a few times. The neighbors leaned in, trying to see. Karen's eyes got wide and she took a step back like she was nervous. Mia held up the tablet so everyone could watch. The video started playing and it was crystal clear. It showed Mia's backyard at night with the smart shade standing quietly. Then out of nowhere, Karen appeared on the screen. She was sneaking through Mia's yard, looking left and right like a cartoon villain. She went right up to the shade and started messing with its controls, pushing buttons and yanking at wires, trying to break it. The neighbors gasped. Mrs. Lopez put her hand over her mouth. Mr. Thompson said, "Well, I'll be." Kids giggled and pointed at the screen. Karen's face went from red to pale, like all the color drained out of it. She opened her mouth to talk, but no words came out. Mia turned off the video and looked at Officer Daniels. "That's not all," she said, still super calm. "I've noticed some other stuff too." Karen's been parking her car in the middle of the street for weeks, blocking everyone's driveways. It's against the rules, but she does it anyway. And last month, she took money from the HOA fund. She said it was for fixing up the park, but have you seen our park? It's still a mess, like a jungle with weeds everywhere. The neighbors started talking all at once. "She's right," said Mrs. Lopez. "My son tripped over a rock in that park last week." Mr. Thompson nodded. "And I've had to move her car myself just to get out of my driveway." The kids whispered to each other, saying things like, "Karen's in trouble now." Officer Daniels turned to Karen, and his face wasn't friendly anymore. It was serious, like he meant business. "Ma'am," he said, "we need to have a talk. Actually, we were already coming to see you today. Someone sent us a tip about some problems with the HOA money, and your name keeps coming up." Karen's eyes got huge. She started stuttering. "Fraud, me? That's ridiculous. I would never. I mean, it's not true." But her voice was shaky, and she looked like she wanted to run away. Her smug grin was gone, and she kept twisting her hands together, nervous as could be. The neighbors weren't buying her story. They started murmuring, putting the pieces together. All those times Karen bossed them around, all those rules she made up, all that money she said was for neighborhood stuff, it was starting to make sense. Karen wasn't just mean, she was doing things she shouldn't have. Mia stood there, calm and confident, watching it all happen. She didn't need to yell or point fingers. She'd let Karen's own actions catch up with her. The neighbors looked at Mia differently now. They weren't whispering about her being the new girl anymore. They were nodding like they finally understood who she was. Karen tried to talk again. "This is all a mistake," she said, her voice high and squeaky. "Mia's the one breaking rules, not me," but nobody listened. Even the kids shook their heads like they knew she was lying. Officer Daniels put his hand up. "Ma'am, you need to come with me. We've got some questions to ask you down at the station." He looked at Mia and gave her a little nod, like he was saying, "Good job." Mia just smiled back, polite as ever. She didn't need to say anything else. The truth was out, and Karen's big plan had fallen apart. The neighbors watched as Karen followed the officer to his car, her head down and her shoulders slumped. For once, she wasn't yelling or waving her rule book. She was quiet, and it was clear she'd lost. Mia turned and walked back to her porch, her smart shade still standing tall in the backyard. The sun was shining now, and the cul-de-sac felt lighter, like a big storm had passed. The neighbors started talking to each other, saying things like, "I always knew Karen was up to no good, and Mia's pretty smart, isn't she?" And that was the moment Sunny Hills saw the real Mia, not just a quiet new neighbor, but someone who knew how to stand up for herself without making a fuss. Karen thought she could push Mia around, but she'd picked the wrong person to mess with.